The Overstood Human Podcast. Unfiltered dialogue, real solutions, no labels. The Overstood Human Podcast exists to inspire people to live with strength, freedom, and a purpose in a world full of noise and division. We champion a life anchored in true health, strong family, personal sovereignty, and self-discovery, inspiring our listeners to thrive beyond the confines of the design system. Our mission is to inspire you to break free from mediocrity, think independently, and live a life of meaning, resilience, and impact. Hello, everybody. I am Frank Tortorici.
My name is Sarah Green.
Coach Chris here. Welcome.
And we are the Overstood Human Podcast.
Well, guys, we made it, huh?
We made it.
Here we are. Months of planning, and we finally are recording this episode of the first episode of the Overstood Human Podcast. We did it. So we are here for everybody, as you heard in our mission statement, to be a beacon of light in this craziness of the world that we like to call the Matrix, right? And Chris, Sarah, and I are here today specifically to share our why. There may be a lot of new listeners. There may be a lot of people who are familiar with us and our work. But one thing that I think that a lot of people know of all of us we are pillars of health, truth, faith, and courage. But what they don't know is a lot of what brought us here, why we are here right now in this moment. And the three of us really thought that this was important to kick this off, to address our why. You know, the why is such an important factor in everything that the three of us do with people that we work with, whether it's myself, coaching people from a health and wellness standpoint, a fitness standpoint, internally, motivationally. For Sarah, people's why is going to be medically. For Chris, kind of parallels with me, coaching, mindset, fitness, self-help, family. So it's very important to get married to your why. The why is we all agree here, is what's going to take us from point A to point B. If you're not married to your why, you can get kind of lost in the chaos that we've seen. I mean, between the three of us, there's decades upon decades upon decades of this subject. And look at them laughing because it's the truth. So this is a very important thing as we kick this off in the new year of 2026. We want to get everybody in focus of their why, because a New Year's resolution is not a solution. A solution is really getting clarity with your why. And I'm going to keep repeating that because repetition is the father of learning, and to keep hearing that in your head. And I think all three of us can agree that when there's trials and tribulations, that's the one thing that's going to keep you truthful with your mission and what you bit off on to better yourself. It's your why. It's what keeps you rooted on the path forward. So in saying that, we have here Sarah Green. And I like for Sarah, her website, holisticsarahpa.com. Sarah, for those, I'm sure there's plenty of people here right now who follow your work and know you, but let's just say there are many that do not. Who is Sarah Green?
Oh, well, thank you. I've been in the medical field my entire life. I started working in the emergency room at 21 years old as an ER scribe, which was an amazing job, basically jotting down everything that took place in each exam room, basically being the voice of the physician. And it just opened up my eyes to the world of medicine, and I loved it. Went on to get my bachelor's and my master's, and became a PA in 2010. And really my focus was to just help others in a world of hurt and a world of chaos, in a world where lies become truth. I just wanted to be the voice of reason. And I think 2020 really opened my eyes. You know, I worked at Cottage Hospital in the trauma and surgery department for most of my career, and left in 2019 went to an urgent care, and this was before the COVID outbreak, and worked there for 2 years. But during 2020, saw what everybody saw, this virus that was supposed to kill a bunch of people, and was knee deep in it, but also realizing that what I was seeing on the news was not what was actually taking place in the urgent care in the hospitals. And so I felt this pull at that point really to just kind of be the truth of it all and realize this is a spiritual battle. And so went out and kind of broke away from corporate medicine, from the allopathic Western medicine world, which I think there's some good things in there, but I also see a lot of corruption in there. And so kind of started my own journey, really, I think, following what God wanted me to do. When I quit, I said, oh my gosh, I don't ever have to swab another COVID patient. I don't ever have to see another COVID patient. I don't have to talk about COVID ever again. And it was all I actually ended up doing. I think God has a sense of humor, and he said, no, this is where you need to be. This is where I need you to be. And that's what I did. And Chris was actually my first COVID kit patient, which just opened the doors to thousands of patients across the United States needing help because their providers were not willing to prescribe medications that would save their life. And so that was kind of my journey. And now I'm, working, I have my own practice, primary care, but again, I go where God leads me. And I see a need for patients struggling with cancer. Cancer is on the rise significantly for a variety of reasons. And so there are more patients, I think, dying of cancer right now than any other disease, and they need hope and they need alternative treatments. And so that's what I'm offering. So I'm kind of going wherever God leads me. Never in my wildest dreams would I think becoming a PA in 2010 that this is where I'd be, but this is exactly where he wants me to be. And so my why is really just to help as many people as I can. I have 4 beautiful children that our time here on this earth is short. If you think about how long this world has been around, how long people have been here, it's very short. So what am I going to leave behind? It's my legacy I leave behind, not what I'm doing now, but what I'm, what my grandchildren will talk about, my great-grandchildren will talk about. And so my why is for the future generations as much as it is for my current patients.
Cool. So Sarah, take us to Sarah as a child. What was life like, and why led you to become aware of health? Like, what was that moment throughout your childhood? What did you see? What did you experience? Like, what brought you to what we see right now?
Sure.
The formative years.
Both my parents were very active. Both of them runners. We were raised in a house where fitness was pretty important. We didn't really my parents didn't drink alcohol. They were very active. And so I got into working out pretty young, 15, 16. My parents got divorced when I was about 13, which kind of tore apart, who I thought I was. I had to become someone that I wasn't familiar with. And so I took a path that was not what I think God had for me, but it's what led me to where I am today. So at 16, almost 17, I actually dropped out of high school, moved out, became a full-time nanny, which was something I love children. I thought I'd be a pediatrician. So I took a very different path and knew eventually that I was going to get back on track, but it actually took getting pregnant with my oldest daughter, where I think God really said, this is your time. This is the moment that you need to turn your life around. And so that was my wake up call. And I realized it was going to be the two of us alone, no support. And so I wanted to become something that my child was proud of, someone that my child could look up to, someone that could support my child. I never wanted to live off the system. I never wanted to be committed to what the government was going. I didn't want any control. I guess that's something that I always ask questions. I kind of fight the system quite a bit. And so I needed to be independent. And so when I had her, I actually went back to school, got my EMT, knew that medicine was my path. And that was my journey. So I ended up graduating with my bachelor's at 26, and then getting my master's at 28. So a little bit older than what most, but yeah, I was a high school dropout. And then it was actually, my saving grace was actually my daughter.
Wow. That's a powerful testimony. So throughout that whole journey, obviously you had moments of doubt, I'm sure, of what am I doing? How am I going to do this? So throughout all of that, what was it that was able to help you rise above the doubt to bring you to where you are right now? Because there's obviously so many challenges throughout a journey of single mom, med school,
Mm-hmm.
the fears, the doubts, and all that. So what was it? When did you realize your why, in the sense of what helped you overcome that, to overstand the solution of what it was going to take to bring you to the Sarah Green that we all know right now, in those deepest, darkest moments?
Well, I think there's probably a bit of stubbornness for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I don't give up. I think when I am committed and I set my mind to something, I stick with it. And so absolutely the doubters and the naysayers and some of those family members, just going, we gave up on you a long time ago. My mom tells me all the time, gosh, we never thought we'd see you alive for your 21st birthday. It was, my journey was not one that was leading me to a good place. And so, of course, she's my biggest cheerleader, but there was a lot of doubt. And I guess a part of it too was I wanted to prove to them. But that was just the beginning. It was proving to myself that anyone, and that's what's so amazing about our country too, is anyone can be anything they want. You can be 50, 60 years old and become a doctor, become a lawyer. There's no, it's time, it's commitment. And that was something that I had. So I stuck with it. I actually was a pretty big fitness person. So I would work out at the gym. I actually would record every single lecture. And back then it was like the cassettes. Oh my gosh, I had so many cassettes. It was disgusting. And my kids, I'd put a cassette on, Mom, please don't make us listen to this lecture. And I would listen on the treadmill. I would have this massive medical book running on the treadmill. And everyone at the gym, they just said, gosh, we see your dedication. I was constantly studying. I was constantly listening to lectures over and over again. And so it was, I don't give up. And I will never really be a victim. I didn't want to be someone that said, well, because I could have given up many times or, whatever, but that's not who I am. And so it was dedication. It was definitely time. It was grueling. PA school is not an easy task at all, but I knew I would get through it. And it was, it was pushing. God led me, of course, there are many times that you want to give up, you're exhausted. I think that's what just drove me more.
You made a comment about your mom saying she didn't know if you were going to be around. So was there like a wild side to Sarah? Were you hanging out with like the wrong people? Like, take us there a little bit.
Yeah. I just, at the time, I just thought high school was silly. It was too many clicks and, we weren't really learning anything. And I figured just being out. So I just became more street smart. I hung out with the wrong crowds. I ditched school pretty early on. Probably most of the people that I grew up with, besides a few, aren't alive anymore. So that was my crowd. So yes, there was a wild side. It was many, many years ago, but
I just like my dad has a saying he always says till this day: tell me who you stay with and I'll tell you who you are.
Absolutely.
So like, was there a defining moment in your life of like, wow, like these people are just like, this is it, like this has to be cut out of my life? Was there like an aha moment, a rock bottom moment? Like, what was your rock bottom?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably, when I got pregnant, I realized things had to change. And it truly was God saying, you won't be around if if this is how I'm going to save you. And but my background, the people I was hanging out with, they had a much different background than I did. I grew up in a pretty financially stable home. My parents were, hardworking. My dad's an attorney. My mom's a CPA. We were raised by a nanny. I have 3 other siblings. I mean, you wouldn't really think that I was kind of the black sheep for sure. So I kept going back to my roots, knowing that this is actually not what I saw as a child. And so I think at that point I was really able to take a step back and just say, this is obviously a lifestyle. It came from hurt. It came from trying to control. I didn't have any control in my life. And so it came from that kind of perspective. But I realized that this was not for me. This was absolutely not for the child that I was bearing. And it was pretty quick at that moment for me to just walk away and start fresh. And I tell her all the time, I'm like, you truly saved my life. She's 23 now. But she did. And, I keep hearing about friends from back then. I mean, I left that group pretty, I was 21, and walked away from all of that, but many of them didn't make it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Crazy, right? Like getting pregnant at such a young age, it's like, oh my God, but that was the blessing, that was the gift from God, right? On so many levels, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if I could go back and do it totally different, 100% I would. I try to tell my kids, please just listen to what I'm saying, because I've been there. I know, I think you couldn't pay me to be a teenager today. No. We didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have, the technology and the AI and all this stuff. So thank goodness my growing up days, my teenage years were not where we are right now.
For sure.
But totally different world.
For sure. So before we wrap up with Sarah, I want to ask, what does Sarah Green like to do when she's not fighting the system and saving people? Like, what puts a smile on your face?
Oh, fitness is like number one for me. I think it is my escape. It's my time with God. It's my cool down. My days are very long at the office. So anywhere where I can go for a run, hit the gym. I love spending time with my children, my mom. I've got a horse. So I think that probably something that I'll admit to, is being stagnant or sitting at home and not doing anything doesn't go over very well. So I have to stay busy. I probably need to learn how to actually be comfortable being bored. That's just something that I haven't learned how to do yet. So, but my health and my fitness is number one, right? If you don't, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter the car you drive. It doesn't matter the house you live in. It doesn't matter the boats you have and whatever, if you're sick, no dollar sign can replace that. And so learning that and trying to make sure that I stay healthy for my kids, for myself, for my future. My goal is to get all my patients off of prescription medications. That's kind of when they walk in the office, I'm like, this is where we're going to shoot for. This is our goal. So if we don't have our fitness, our health, we've lost everything. We've lost our focus. And so that's probably my biggest thing is I don't ever want to be in a situation where I can't fulfill something because my health is what's holding me back.
Boom. I love it. All right. Well, Sarah, I'm going to pass this off to you now, and it's all yours.
Okay. So Coach Chris, give us a little bit about your why and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, great question. I love to hear your full story, Sarah. Obviously, we've known each other for a few years, and I knew some of it. But wow, it is interesting how we all show up today. And, my journey started 45 years ago. Kind of like you, I did not like high school. My goal was to graduate high school, even if it was a D- average, just to get my diploma. And, when I was in high school, I was the little runt, never played sports. I got picked on. So I had significant self-esteem issues, was really, and kind of like you, I was not heading down a good path with the people I was hanging around with. My childhood was very dysfunctional. My mom was raising 5 kids without a father. So it was absolute chaos. So I did everything I could to get myself in trouble and really became a teenage alcoholic, just to kind of numb the pain and chaos. And at that time of my life, I would have never known. I would have been in the health and wellness industry, But the saving grace for me at that time was when I was a junior in high school, I was able to get into vocational training to be an auto mechanic. And I would say that was the first point in my life that probably saved me from getting myself in a lot of trouble and ending up in jail, most likely. But it gave me a focus and a purpose. And I was able to get out of high school half the day. So I didn't have to do all the reading, writing, and arithmetic. I got to work on cars, and I graduated high school as an apprentice mechanic, started working on cars. I figured that was my whole life. But there was still something missing inside of me. I still felt like I was an underdog. I was constantly, my self-esteem was low because I was just a little runt. I never played any sports. And then I went to watch the Rocky I movie when I was 17 years old. And man, did that movie change my entire life, why I'm here today. Because as you guys know, in that movie, Rocky was the underdog. And I felt like I was an absolute underdog at that time in my life. And it inspired me so much. I left that movie and I went out and bought my first 300-pound weight set. That's dates how far back I go. They used to sell these cement weights that you put in your home, 300 pounds, and bought a bench. And I just started working out, didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I just started doing that and started running, and my body just started to really respond well. And as my body responded, my self-esteem started growing. And by the time I was 20, I had enough nerve to join a gym. And I started working out in a gym. It was an all men's only gym back in 1979 now. And my body just took to the weight training. And then people started noticing me and saying, wow, have you ever thought about competing in bodybuilding? And I'm thinking, I've never competed in my life, leave alone bodybuilding. But it was like I was a late bloomer. My body still responded. So now I started having this absolute passion for working out. And by the time I was 21, I ended up opening my first gym, my first bodybuilding gym. And really, that's where I cut my teeth on nutrition and started to understand how nutrition affects the body. As a bodybuilder, getting down to 3-4% body fat, it came down to what you ate, what you didn't eat. And I learned so much. So my schooling kind of came from the school of hard knocks of really understanding nutrition. We were talking about keto back in 1980 before keto became popular. We figured out how to get into a ketogenic state to, get really lean. And so, as I had success in bodybuilding, I just found this new love. I retired from the automotive business and went full-time into my gym business and spent 15 years in that gym business. 10 of the years I was a competitive bodybuilder. And I learned so much because I was able to take this broken little skinny body and turn it into something, amazing. But not only me, but hundreds and hundreds of other individuals I was able to help do that. And then I started coaching people from all walks of life and really brought to the forefront with my clients the discipline I learned from bodybuilding, but really understanding that it's not just the workout, it's about what you eat. And I really understood the food, the nutrition, and all that. And then it was about 20 years of doing that type of coaching, mostly nutrition and training, that I realized, why do people keep sabotaging themselves? Like, I could teach you how to eat, I could teach you how to exercise, but why would they keep sabotaging themselves? And that's where I shifted my coaching from physical and nutritional to more of a mindset, and started really getting into people's head and finding out what was it that was causing them to sabotage themselves. And it fascinated me with, if we don't go there first, we're never going to be able to help people achieve their ultimate goals of optimal health, And so that got me on this whole new journey of coaching. And that's where I started. And as we started our podcast today talking about why, that's what I was starting to integrate into my coaching 20 years ago, was helping people get to the why. Do you even want to be healthy? Maybe you don't want to be healthy. And some people realize they didn't, so, you work with the willing, but I started understanding really early on how powerful the why is, and getting people connected with their purpose, because things get tough, as we all know. It's not easy to stay healthy and eat good food and exercise, and you've got to have the discipline. But the reason we all have the discipline is because we understand why we're doing it. And that's really what I brought into my coaching. And through all the years, I've, had multiple health and fitness type businesses, been an entrepreneur in this industry for all these years. And today, my focus really is I want to work with men, because I really believe that men have just kind of lost their place in the world, not because they want to, because they just don't know what to do. And I feel my journey that I've been on, all my life experience, the mistakes that I've made, I was like you, Sarah, a single parent for a while. So, at age 36, I lost everything, started all over, but ended up with my son, ended up with full custody of my son at the time when he was 6 years old, and now he's 37. And so my life experience, I feel, is what's brought me to the opportunity of being a good coach, not because I read it in a book, but because I've made every mistake and I've been able to break through the challenges. And, my why I'm here with this podcast right now, and what we're doing is that I believe if we're going to really make an impact in this world, it starts in our households. Mm-hmm. And to me, it starts with the male in the household, not discounting the women. The women have their place, but I truly believe in all my coaching. I've learned so much from my women clients and what they shared and what they would have liked to have seen the man in their life be. And I think it's not, men don't want to just be flakes because they want to be flakes. They just don't really understand, and you always try to go out and read a book. It's not bad about, reading a book, but at the end of the day, you've got to work with somebody who's got life experience, and so that's my mission moving forward now, is working with men and getting the household, making our households the focus, not the White House.
Right. And have you seen, you've been doing this for a while, we're not going to date it, but as time goes on, have you seen the masculine male just dwindle away? And
totally.
What are you, what are your steps in trying to, not that it's all on your shoulders, but what do you say to these clients that come to you and you see a very feminine male, which I think unfortunately is what's happening? How do you coach them? What do you say?
Yeah, well, that's why we got to start talking about nutrition and exercise. I think a lot of these people have, their testosterone levels are so low because of their poor diet, their poor lifestyle. So they're in itself, they start taking on this feminine type of, mannerisms and such. And I think that's what's caused a lot of these women, like a lot of men will complain like, man, that's a tiger mom or a tiger aggressive woman. And I think the reason the women are being like that, because they don't want to be the male, and so they're looking for the male to be the male, lead, and so I just think, for a man to be a man, he's got to have some discipline, and he's got to start exercising, eating right, and getting his head on straight, because the kids watch us. They don't listen to a damn thing we say. They only watch what we do, and if we are going to change things, that's why I want to work with the male and get him right, because he's supposed to be leading the family. The woman has their role, the kids are doing their thing, but the male's got to lead the family. And I'm older than you guys, have been alive probably 20 plus years, so I think I've seen a lot more. And I just think that when I look back, when things were much better, things were going much better in the household. The male was doing their thing. And nowadays you got both parents working, and I understand that has to happen at times. But there are ways there's sacrifices I think people have to be willing to make. And I just think if we could, for me, I want to start with the guy.
Mm-hmm. Do you think society has a big role in what they've been doing to basically dismantle the American family?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the 100% agenda. Mm-hmm. That's why, we need to lead stronger there. And I think they've also made men feel like if they're being a man full of testosterone, doing what they want, is this whole toxic masculinity thing. They've tried to really, because what's the best way to break down the family? Make the father worthless, make the man not be who he should be. The whole system is set up to keep dad out of the house. If you look at when a family goes through a divorce, no matter how bad the mom falls off, the mom usually gets custody of the kid because they want dad out of the house. And I went through that child custody battle back in the 90s. And I was only the second male at that time in Santa Clara County to get custody of a child. But
Wow.
This speaks to how far off his mom fell off. But it was amazing in that court system, watching how they did everything they could to keep the male outside of the family. Now, I didn't understand it back then like I see now. And I could look back and go, that was all by design. Take dad out of the house. And then it becomes tough for the mom to, as you know, you're a single parent. It's not easy to try to take care of your kids and, make a living and do all the things you can, and I just think that everybody's got these ideas of wanting to change the world. And the quickest way to change the world is change our own household.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is dedication, right? It is so easy to not try. I have a lot of patients. Of course I want to be healthy, but they run into McDonald's and they're stuffing their face with junk food. And so wanting and actually doing those steps is totally, it's work. It's hard. It's hard work, but it's
well,
worth
I think the other thing with men is, men attribute who they are, their image, self-image to their job, their career. It's all tied to who am I in my career, and I've got to make money to support my family. And of course, we all need to do that, right? But I think so many men chase that career so aggressively that they forget to take care of all the other things that they need to take care of, especially their health. Most of the guys I coach I'm saying, look at, you're a 7-figure earner in your income, but are you a 7-figure earner in your marriage and your, being a parent? And most aren't. And I think, again, it doesn't start out that it say, hey, I want to neglect everybody. I'm just going to be financially driven. But society says that too. You've got to drive and you've got to succeed. And there's nothing wrong with succeeding. But at the end of the day, if all that worked, we wouldn't see the problems we have in the country today. So I say we need to stop, because the madness that we've seen in the last 50 years isn't getting better, it's getting worse. So until we change something, nothing's going to change, right? And I have this saying that when all else fails, go back to basics. That's it in every part of our life, and why I'm excited to be working with you guys on this is I know that, we're going to work a lot with families, and we all are passionate there, because I think that's how we change the world.
Absolutely. And I can speak being a female that, most females, they want a masculine male. We don't want to have to be the sole provider and the protector and the everything. We want to give that over, because that's not human nature. But society, what we've got going is it's very difficult because the men don't play that role. And so the women have to kind of step into that. So as a female, that's, I have to do, I feel like I have to do it all, because that's just where I'm at and what's happening with men today. So I love that. And it really, Chris and Frank, it starts with just one, right? Change one at a time. That's all you can do. And then you hope that person that you changed will bleed what they have learned onto the men in their life. And it's a domino effect, but one at a time.
Yeah. And I think helping them with their mind, body, and mission. I think a lot of men don't really know what their mission in life is, and helping them understand the purpose, because I think all of us at the end of the day, and you mentioned this, Sarah, too, it's all about our legacy, right? I mean, that's how people will remember you. And, because I went through a divorce at 36 and started all over and had my little boy. And now, of course, you guys know, remarried and have a daughter now that's 24. I'm a whole different person today than I was back then. And my whole focus when I started all over at 36 wasn't about building businesses anymore. Of course, I did it, but it was about building my family and putting my time and energy into my kids. And it's not easy to be a parent in today's world of how you raise your children, you know, with technology and everything else. But I could say, as hard as it's been, I could look at my son now, 37, my daughter at 24, and I could take a deep breath and say, it was worth the effort. And it's the reason, you know, the reason that they're healthy and doing on that journey too, is that that's what my wife and I modeled. We didn't talk about it. We just did it. And guess what? They're doing it now too. And that's just how it works. You know, we've got to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I get to talk to Frank here. Gosh, Frank, we probably met over, got to have been over 10 years ago, huh?
Oh, I would say, yeah. I think 2014, 15, whenever
14,
the whole
so
bone broth, ancient
yeah, the
nutrition
whole
thing
bone
hit the
broth
scene.
thing. I was just thinking, I just remember I saw a picture of us in California Fresh Market that time, and your wife was working with them on supplements, and we were doing the bone broth launch with Jordan Rubin. And but I just love, you know, how people come together at the right time for the right reasons. And I believe that you and I met through a mutual friend like Sarah. We all met. It's just, it's so cool. You don't know it at the time. And who would have known when we first met over 10 years ago that we'd be doing a podcast together? But, you know, Frank, you've got a great story. You're such an inspiration. And, you know, what I think is what has kept us in touch all these years is the admiration and passion for what we do. And, you know, I've always been inspired by your story. And I think it's a story that everybody needs to hear. The people that know you, obviously, maybe they know some of it, but, you know, take us back in time and why did Frank get involved in this industry?
Yeah. Childhood was a tough thing for me. I clearly remember being a child, 4 or 5 years old, dealing with a lot of angst through my body. I would get on all fours and bang my head on the floor just out of nowhere, and just have you know, at a very young age, having way too mature thoughts about life. Always took life way too seriously, even in my childhood. And at 8 years old was the real defining moment in my life when I went for a wellness visit and received 3 vaccines in one day and went into seizures in the doctor's office within minutes. Those seizures lasted for a couple of weeks on and off. And then weeks later, after that, once that subsided, I started developing tics, and parents took me to about 2 to 3 different neurological specialists, and they all concluded that I had Tourette's syndrome. So for those of you that have been watching this, seeing me, whatever, making, you know, I'm not tweaked out. I promise you those days. It's just, you know, it's life with Tourette's, and life with Tourette's is it's a constant reminder for me of my why, right? It's like I'm sure all 3 of us can agree that when the blinders come off about the system and the matrix, it's a gift and a curse, right? It's bittersweet. And there's so many times I'm like, God, like I wish I look at some like people that I know like on social media that bless their heart and their soul and everything in between, like they don't, you know, they're oblivious to everything going on. And sometimes I wish, I'm like, man, I wish I could like see the world like that, just so carefree and like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory type perspective. But unfortunately, every time you guys see me, you know, fighting a twitch, a Tourette, it's I'm constantly in pain, you know, and that's my why, because as a father now, and I think both of you have touched on that. It's about the legacy. It's about, if I die tomorrow, what am I doing besides just parenting this child to help create an impact in this world? And you know, so throughout, after that diagnosis, went through just medication after medication from doctors. And luckily I was smart enough as a kid. I only tried two to three different types of drugs. And after a couple of weeks, I was like, this is not for me. Like I'll deal with the Tourette's. Like I just felt horrific. I felt horrific. Um, and when I was about 12 years old, well, I was always very active in sports. I played baseball a lot, soccer, but baseball was like my thing. Traveled a lot, baseball camps, Williamsport tournament, like did all that stuff as a kid. And that always kept my self-confidence, like, cause I was good at it. And as far as school, if I didn't do my homework or class projects, I would fail, because taking tests and being able to focus was just like, it was the hardest thing for me, you know? Um, but what really lit my whole world on fire and what changed the whole direction of my life when I was about 12, 13 years old. Uh, I had a cousin who was competing in an all natural bodybuilding contest at the time. And I went to that, and it just lit something in me of like this self-empowerment that I saw and witnessed. And after talking to him about the prep that he went through, and the 5 a.m. cardio and the cutting down on things and losing weight, and I was just like, whoa, like it just, I don't know, it did something to me that I still can't really even articulate in the proper way. And I think maybe all three of us can agree on that. When fitness impacts your life, it's unspeakable. Like it's a spiritual thing. It's a
Yeah.
right. It's just it's a deep thing. So that really like led me on my way. When I was 13, I remember, I'm dating myself now at 47, but like I remember that Christmas, my dad bought me a Solo Flex machine, and that's what I started on. That, and then I had a couple of weight sets from my dad, and like you, Chris, Rocky Balboa, man. He did, once I heard dun, 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 that's it, game over. So it just started there. And then at 15, I competed in my first natural bodybuilding contest, did another one at 17. And then it was at that point when I started like stepping back a little bit. I started seeing like the older guys in the gym, and started like hearing the drug talk, the steroids, and like just started seeing, like at 17, I was like, wow, I don't see longevity in this, like I don't know where this is going. You pick up back in the day, the Flex magazines, the Muscle and Fitness, and you start reading like what Mr. Olympia was making at the time. And at 17, I'd be like, well, this is not adding up from what they're getting paid, and like what they're even spending just on their drugs to prep for the contest, let alone their lifestyle. So that's where like I started like pulling back a little bit. But unfortunately, during that time, even through my dark times, fitness was always there, right? Like I've since 13 years old, like unless I'm sick with the flu, which is rare, I'm working out like at least 3 to 4 days a week. Like I have to. It's 98 to 99% of people with Tourette's have OCD, and I'm classic case of one of them. Like I have my regimen, and it's going to get completed that day. If I've slept 1 hour, doesn't matter. Like I'm pushing through it. I'm doing it. Like there's just a checklist of things I have to do every day to make myself feel complete. But from about 16 and a half till about 20 years old, 21, was really my dark period of life, where I really started self-medicating a lot. And as you could imagine, being a 16, 17-year-old kid in the gym, all of the kids that I hung out with, they were in their early 20s, mid 20s. So I was the young kid on the block wherever I went. But unfortunately, growing up in Long Island, there was a lot of nightlifes, and then that led to going to New York City. And lo and behold, like I always stood my ground, and of like, I don't do this, I don't do that. I would drink, but then it took, when I was 16 years old, I went to Cancun on spring break, and I finally gave in, and I did my first hit of ecstasy, and that was like, so from that moment till about 20, 21 years old, I went through this really dark place of, just became socially accepted, right? Everyone you were around was doing it. So it was like, it wasn't like I was getting high in my bedroom every night. It was just going out, and that's what you did. After hour clubs, the Limelight, the Palladium, like all those nightclubs, like that's what you did. Like everyone I knew was doing it. So it was just normalized. And I started realizing that because it's funny, even in the nightclub settings where everyone's having fun, I would just sit there and think about life. What's my purpose? What am I doing? Like, why am I here? Like, I was always so reflective that people would come up to me and be like, smile, like you're out, have fun. And I'm like, and I would have, moments of fun, but for the most part, I was just always like, what's my purpose? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Like, who am I hanging out with? Like, so it just made me a very reflective person. And then I knew internally that I was doing the wrong things. I mean, my dad constantly, it's funny how life works. My dad grew up in New York City and left New York City to move to Long Island because my dad's a blue collar, upstanding person, but all of his childhood friends are dead or in jail. And he left very young. I think he said 14 or 15, went to go stay with my aunt and uncle, just got away from that. Started a family at a very young age. And for myself, it was the opposite. I left Long Island to move to New York City in June of 2000 to get away from everything, right? And just my rock bottom moment was just realizing that the so-called friends I was hanging out with were not friends. It was like a chemical romance of people that I was around, like wasn't true friendship. And then in June of 2000 is when everything radically changed for me. That set me on the path to the person that you see sit in front of you right now. My roommate, when I moved in, he was actually paired up with me with a photographer that I knew. I was doing, fitness modeling, things like that at the time. And this photographer was like, Frankie, you got to get out of Long Island. He was this photographer was a savior to me at the time. And I still keep in touch with him. He's Taiwanese Buddhist. And like, he started giving me books on Buddhism, meditation, and started helping me become more self-aware, you know? And then he's like, you'll be great with Brian, like be a good roommate. This kid was couldn't be the funniest, like we're like ebony and ivory. This kid's like from Columbus, Ohio, like with white bread as they come. And this, at the time, Italian Guido comes. I wish there was a hidden camera in there. It would have been a pretty funny reality show at the time. But he was a raw foodist, and he was a competitive cyclist. And I started in June of 2000. As soon as I met him, I was just so intrigued, like seeing this kid eat so many different foods. And because Chris, as you know, in the bodybuilding world, you're only lean 4 weeks out of the year if you're lucky.
Yeah.
The rest of the time you're like bulking up,
Bulking up.
powerlifting, trying to put on muscle. And this kid was like, just lean, like muscle man, like what I always wanted my physique to be. I never wanted to be like a bodybuilder. I always wanted that lean, athletic look. So that's what intrigued me. It wasn't the internal health of it. It was the obviously the aesthetics. And I just started like devouring books on keto diet, raw foods, macrobiotics. And I just started reading, going to lectures. Meeting in New York City was at the time was filled with a lot of great herbalists and naturopaths. So just started going to like these meetup groups, meeting them, talking to them, like just where I just became obsessed with the information and applying it. And that's the huge thing that I think we can all agree on in our practices. And I always quote Bruce Lee. It's a famous quote: knowing is not enough. We must apply. And we're all inundated with so much information nowadays, but so few can truly apply it every single day, which is back to the, our why, right? You have to be able to apply it. And yeah, I mean, that was the journey. And what can I say? I was living about a mile and a half from the World Trade Center when 9/11 happened. And I was actually, ironically, I was on my first juice cleanse. I was at that time. So I was, I really segued in from June of 2000 up until that point of just like slowly cutting out, processed foods, things like that, going gluten-free like that. That was a big thing for me too, going gluten-free. I took that out and then put gluten back in 2 weeks later, and it like spoke volumes to me of just, mucus, headache, like fogginess. I was like, whoa. So like it was little by little, like stripping layers of the onions off in a sense, so as 9/11 was a huge thing for me because on a juice cleanse, living so close to it. I mean, that's a whole nother story that we can get into it at another topic, but that was my like opening Pandora's box, 9/11, and especially being on a juice cleanse, I was like seeing things so clear. And that's what really set me down the rabbit hole. And then I realized treating my Tourette's holistically and going through 9/11 and seeing things, like I don't know how anyone can go down the rabbit hole of true health and not go down the rabbit hole of everything else we've been told in our lives, because it's all it just fits perfectly like that, you know. And that was that's that was like the golden bridge for me to be here with you two in this moment, was that sequence of events for sure.
Well, Frank, because of you, you're the one that kind of inspired this podcast. And, you and I would always talk, not that frequent, but when we did, man, we would just talk for hours about all this stuff. And it was you that said, man, we should start a podcast. We should start recording these conversations we have. And then we started talking about, wanting someone else, a female person on. And of course, we thought both Sarah would be perfect, and it's so cool because, like you said, we've all been down the rabbit hole, and it all started because of our health journeys, right? And one of the things that we've talked about, Frank and Sarah, is that why this podcast, we believe, is going to be so important to the world, is that we do need to unplug from the matrix, because all of us have spent way too much time down the rabbit hole. I could speak for myself, and there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do, and talk a little bit about that, Frank, on how that's changed your perspective, because it's easy to go want to fight everything, to the detriment of your own health and your family. So, share with us a little bit about how you kind of came to that awakening and thought, is this really worth my time going down and spending all that time on things that I really can't influence?
Yeah, I mean, I think all three of us can agree. It's like you get tired of like beating the dead horse, right? With people, it's and I think in our world and all the podcasts that are out there and the platforms, okay, great. There may be new listeners to this. And, if you're new listeners to us and our work in this message, then stay tuned. We'll help you diagnose the problem in the world if it's hard for you to figure out. But after that, what is the solution, right? Because it's like, even doing XYZ that's good for your health, if you're constantly immersed in what's so bad, it's hard to progress into this self-made utopia for you and the people around you that you love so dearly. And again, back to our children, like that's why I think I know that's why we're all here, right? I mean, it's us and it's our children, right? So it's like, Jesus, be in this world but not of it. And that's really where my head is at. And I think, to piggyback off of what you said earlier, Sarah, too, is like COVID, right? Like, I mean, that really, COVID was the defining moment for me of like, right, these are tribal times now. Like this podcast is about just that, right? Like, I can't tell you guys how beneficial it was. I mean, it hindered my business a lot, and I'm still dealing with the effects of it, from speaking out so much during COVID, from getting censored, getting pages taken down, etc. But on the flip side of that, it helped me maneuver, right? Like I moved from New York City in 2004 to Los Angeles, and I lived in Los Angeles, California from 2004 up until 2020. And I had no desire to leave there. I mean, obviously there's draconian laws when it came to vaccines and things like that. And I was aware of that as in 2018, becoming a dad. But when I left LA, it was having online tribes of like-minded people, and then going through COVID is what helped me to like meet a realtor, in Idaho, where we first ended up, and then to Arizona, where I'm at now, and just connecting with people. It's so important. So the dialogue for me, and I know for all three of us, we share this common ground, which is why we're here, is how do we overstand the matrix, right? How do we navigate around it? Because at the end of the day, if you as one individual or even a group of people think that you're going to beat it, you're delusional. You're not going to beat it. And that's not coming from a negative place. That's overstanding the concept, the game that they played, that we're playing. Like, life is a game of chess. I'm a huge chess fan and player. I've been playing since I'm a little kid. And chess is such a powerful tool to understand, to overstand that of the concept of this matrix and of this game. So talking health, talking God, talking self-realization, it's all a part of it. But even more importantly, it's the community. We need each other. Like us like-minded people, like we need each other. You know, it's okay to like check your ego aside. I don't need anybody. Like, no, we need each other for resources, for encouragement, to lean on. Because as we said, you know, when you take the glasses off and you start seeing things so clearly, you need people. Like, I need you to bounce ideas off of, to stay clear and to stay focused and to stay sharp of what the next steps are. Because, you know, and it's just funny hearing your stories here today. I didn't know how much all I have in common with you too as well, just of our history of growing up. You know, and I think a lot of people listening to this too will find that, like, and that's I think what I want to end this with is that what you see of us, like there's that statement, what gets celebrated in public is what was worked on in private. Right? And even though Chris, Sarah, and myself come off as polished when it comes to how we treat ourselves, our health, our disciplines, how we live, that's a day-to-day grind. What you see on this camera right now of us and what you see in our work and what the message we put out there, that's the day-to-day grind that we live every single day. Like, you're not going to break us. Like, when it comes to that, like, it's not up for debate. Like, that's who we are. And that's what drives us. And that's what keeps us doing what we're doing. And that's what the gift that we want to try to give to the world. I think I could speak for us when we say that, like, this is the gift that we want to give. We want to get all of you listening and watching how to overstand this system and how to be in it, but not of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? Yep. So true, Frank. And, you know, as we wrap up here, I just want to thank you and Sarah, because you guys have been such an inspiration and staying to your values during this whole COVID thing. You know, I've watched what you guys post, and I know it's not easy to speak the truth, because when you do, you're attacked, you know, and that's what's brought us all here together. And as you said so well, Frank, look, we're just as broken as everyone else out there. You know, we've just got some life experience, and together we really can make a difference, you know, in our communities. And it starts in our house and our communities, and then that spreads. And I look forward to doing this with you guys and all the new people that we're going to meet here on the podcast. So why don't you close it out for us, Sarah?
All right. Well, you guys, this has been amazing. And I'm excited for what the future has, not only for us, but all the people listening. And, you know, you're not alone. I want to share that with everybody. You're not alone. And when you feel like you've hit your rock bottom, you just start picking up your pieces, because you've got a purpose. God has a purpose for you. You're here for a reason. And I think that finding your people, we hope that we can be part of that tribe to just help you understand and learn and see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm grateful to know you guys and be on this. And I think that we can really help people. And you're right, starting in your home, but then being able to branch that out to the community and to the world, really. So I'm super excited, and thank you guys for inviting me on. And I'm looking forward to this journey that we can go on together.
Awesome. And I'll just sign off by saying, I want to circle back to what we were saying earlier. Anyone listening or watching, as soon as this video ends or this audio ends, wherever you're listening or watching to this, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what's your why? And connect yourself to your why. And don't make this a quick process, but try to meditate on it. And don't make it something that you're trying to figure out an answer for right in that second, but becoming aware of your why through your day-to-day actions and your daily habits and patterns. With every breath, when you become aware, think of your why. And I want to end it with that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Overstood Human Podcast. Be sure to join in next week. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Always consult with your physician before starting any exercise program or doing anything contained in this podcast.